Hey everyone, Shane here with etrailer.com. Today I have a 2021 Dutchmen Coleman Lantern Travel trailer. I'm going to walk through how to install the Solera slide topper. For those of you that are new to camping, hopefully I can explain it good enough to where you'll understand why it's important to have one. For those of you that are not new to camping and don't have a slide topper, you'll understand why. When we have our box out, if we don't have that cover, when we have our box slid out, let's say we're at a campsite that has a lot of trees, a lot of leaves, a lot of sticks. With this open, the top of our box is open, or the roof side. So any leaves or anything that fall on top of that, we have to get up there and clean it off before we slide our box in. If we don't, it can leave gaps and it can cause leaking. Another thing, we also have to get up there and we have to actually scrub the roof membrane down, because if we don't, it could mold and mildew. The mold and mildew, when you slide your box back in, all that's going to be inside the camper. Not only get in the air inside the camper, but it's also could cause some other issues later on down the road. So I highly recommend, if you have a slide box, you don't have a slide topper, put a slide topper on it. It's going to help protect the top of that. It's going to save you a lot of money in the long run and a lot of maintenance that you otherwise would have to do if you didn't have one. Slide toppers are going to come in many different sizes. They're going to come in black or white with matching hardware. The only thing that the kit is not going to come with is butyl tape. It is going to be required when installing these onto the side of your camper. You can find the butyl tape here at eTrailer. If you've never looked at it, this is what the top of your box looks like. It's the same fabric or same material that you have on your roof, same membrane. And again, when we slide our box out, if we don't have this topper on there, this whole side of this box is open. So when we go to slide it back in, it goes past this rubber seal and now it's sitting inside the camper. When we go to those spots that have a lot of trees and stuff, leaves as I was talking about earlier, if we don't get up there and clean it off, we get mold and mildew up here, one. Two, when leaves get wet, they kind of pack down. As this thing slides in, this rubber seal is probably going to keep most of it out, but what it's going to do, it's going to cause those leaves to bunch up against this rubber seal. When your T-molding butts up against it, what it's going to do, it's going to leave a gap. Leaves a gap, you're going to get water leaking in there, you're going to cause a whole lot of damage inside. Adding the slide topper gives you complete coverage. We don't have to worry about water sitting up here. We don't have to worry about getting up here and cleaning anything off, because as we roll our slide in, slide topper is going to roll up on here and everything will fall off. The fabric itself is going to be a nice durable vinyl fabric. It's going to hold up in all weather conditions. It's actually going to extend out 48 inches, so if you have a box that slides out a little bit farther than some of the other types of slide outs, you know you're going to have enough fabric on there so it completely covers the top side of that box. Now, a very important step in getting the correct size topper is measuring the size of your box. Very simple. You're going to find the outer edge of the T-molding. On one side, you're going to measure all the way across to the outer edge of the other side. You're going to take that number, check the fit guide, you're going to pick the correct topper that fits that box. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. On each edge, you want to make sure you have at least 7 inches. If you don't have 7 inches, you're going to have to go down one size slide topper. I've had some campers where they had 2 slide outs that are real close together. On one of those boxes, I had to go down one size. Had another situation where the slide out was on the door side and the awning rail was right next to it. I had to go down a size with that. So just something to keep in mind. Make sure you have at least 7 inches from this outer edge out in order for the top rail to come out far enough so it doesn't touch anything. Now, I've installed a lot of slide toppers on a lot of different types of campers, but I've never installed one on a Coleman Lantern. I'm excited to jump into it. Let's go ahead and walk through how to do it together. Start our installation. We're going to have to install the extrusion rail onto our sidewall. If you don't have one, it's going to come in the kit. So what we're going to do is the top of our T-molding, make sure it's not the corner, top of our T-molding, we're going to measure up 3 inches and we're going to put a mark. We're going to do that in a couple spots from one end to the other. Those are going to be our marks. When we set our T-molding or our extrusion rail up, it's level and straight, even with the top of the box. Next, we're going to take our extrusion rail, we're going to flip it upside down. We're going to take these two brackets, we're going to flip them upside down. We're going to take our butyl tape, we're going to put it right along this backside from one end to the other, and then put two strips here to cover the screw holes. Again, butyl tape does not come in the kit. It is going to be required when installing these. We're going to take it and stick it right in that slot.
Now the next set of hands, we're going to install our extrusion rail. You can do this two ways. This is where the bead of your awning is going to go, so you can have it on top or on the bottom. I like to do it on top, that way my screws are covered by the weather. We don't have to worry about them rusting out. The lines that we have, if you do it this way, we want this edge to be on the line. If we flip it over, and we're doing this when it's up, this line would be, or this edge would be on those lines. So we're going to start on one end, and I would suggest starting on one end. Make sure the person on the opposite end is holding it level, because if you don't, you're going to take this off. Butyl tape's going to be everywhere. It's going to be a pain in the butt to clean up, so we want to do it one time. Next, we're going to need a square bit. We're going to use all the screws that have the domed head on them. They're going to be self-tappers. This is what is going to hold your extrusion rail to the wall. And we're going to start on one end and put the screws in the holes. Now, the reason we're using butyl tape, and the nice thing about it is as we drive the screw in, the screw threads are going to grab onto that butyl tape and it's going to kind of pull it into the hole and help seal that hole. So now you're getting seal around the edge as well as inside the hole. It's going to prevent any water from getting in, causing any damage to any wood walling. And as we're working our way down, this butyl tape's coming out the bottom, and you want to get rid of it, you don't have to. You take a razor knife and don't push against the side. All we have to really do is score it a couple times. And then we can peel off that excess. It'll just kind of help clean it up a little bit. Really up to you if you want to do that, you can leave it on there. Next, what we're going to do, and on either end, these two corners, what we're going to do is take a pair of pliers, needle nose, whatever, and we're going to bend them down like this. That way when we go to slide our canopy in, the corners don't tear the edge. Next, we're going to take these brackets. You'll notice there's a flat edge, and the other side is kind of curved. We want this curved side to face down. What we're going to do is we're going to go on the wall, all the way up against the top T-molding, all the way into the corner against the side T-molding, as far as we can. We can use that butyl tape to hold it in place. The hardware that we're going to be using to hold it in, they're going to be square bit self-tappers, only they're going to be flathead. We're going to have 5 for each bracket. Once you get your hardware in place, if you want to come back, you can trim off the excess butyl tape that's hanging out or leave it. It's completely up to you. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite end. Next, we're going to take these rods. You're going to notice there's a hole at the end. On the side arm, there's going to be a hole. We're going to line up those 2 holes. In the end, we're going to put a cap. You'll notice there's a notch in it. We're going to line up that hole, or the notch, with the holes in the rail. We're going to have a self-tapper that we're going to install
in place. It's going to be a Phillips head. Now before I drive it completely in, again, this is completely up to you. What I like to do is take a black paint marker and we're going to paint the head of this bolt. That way it matches all the other hardware on our awning. We're going to repeat that same thing at the opposite end. Now take your canopy, unroll it one loop, and make sure that this is facing out. We're going to slide this bead right in there. Now it may take a couple of people to help get this in there. Once we got it slid into place, we can just let it rest. Now with our second person at the opposite end, we're going to roll this up like this. We're going to take this bracket and we're going to slide it on. We want to make sure that this end of the arm is straight up and down. We don't want it leaning real far forward or real far back. On this bracket, there's actually going to be 2 slots, or 4 slots actually. This allows you to adjust this bracket up or down. I'm going to put it in the lowest, so it'll be the top 2 slots. And then once we roll our canopy out, if it's touching the top of our T-molding, we can always slide this bracket off, move it up one, and then put it back on. Now we're going to have 4 really small Allen head bolts. Once you have this plate on that bracket, you have it on there even. We're going to take the bolt and we're going to put 2 of them in. Depending on the slot, whether you're using the lower ones or the upper ones, those are the 2 slots you're going to put them in. This is going to keep this bracket from sliding back and forth. We'll go down to the other bracket, put those in, and then what we're going to do is we're going to center this, and then we'll have a couple self-tappers that are going to go in here into this rail. Once you have it centered, we're going to take our arm, we're going to rotate it back. You'll notice this rod here is kind of rotating so that the flat side's facing that hole. We're going to take our self-tapper, and we're going to go right up through it. What I suggest is don't just try driving this thing in there, because if these heat up, they will break off. So kind of feather it until it starts grabbing, and then you can drive it in. Then we can do the same thing that we did with the other hardware. Come back with our marker if we choose to, and we can paint the ends of these black. We're going to do that same thing on the opposite end. Next thing you're going to do, a pair of pliers on each end of your roller. You're going to take it and you're going to spin it, and then we're going to slide out that clip. You want to make sure that you hold on to these. If you ever have to take this off for any reason, you can spin this. You can see a slot there. You can spin this, find the hole in the center rail, and you can slide that back in, and it'll keep the spring on the inside from unraveling all the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my box in and out a couple of times. That'll kind of allow the bead that's in that extrusion rail against the wall to adjust a little bit. And then we'll have a screw that we can put in each end to keep it from moving while we're using it later on. Once you roll it in and out a few times, if you kind of see a wrinkle, that means it's not sliding or not adjusting in here. If you take your roller, just kind of turn it just enough to take the pressure off. You can kind of slide that bead in there just ever so slightly, enough so that it pulls the wrinkles out. You're going to have some small self-tappers. On the extrusion rail, from the end of your canopy, you're going to go in about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. You're going to drive right through that extrusion rail, right into that bead. That's going to keep it from sliding back and forth as you use it, as I mentioned earlier. Once you have both screws in, run your slide out in and out a couple more times. Check it, make sure you don't have to make any more adjustments, and you're ready to go. It's going to do it for a look at installation on the Solera slide topper on 2021 Dutchmen Coleman Lantern Travel Trailer.